Finally, the pièce de résistance. The PowerPac takes the SpiderPac fence system a further quantum leap in terms of ease of use and time efficiency. The PowerPac uses an electric winder, so we can wind in polywire while we drive. Add a couple of other tricks and we can unclip the polywire from the tread-ins and extract the tread-ins from the ground without moving a muscle. The PowerPac comes in 2, 3 and 4 wire versions, and by making use of the duplex mode we can build just about any fence we might want. Because the actual fence items are the same as for the rest of the SpiderPac system, we can still use the manual methods for backup or for difficult terrain. The only requirement of the PowerPac is that the tread-in extractor demands the use of single wedge clips rather than double, and you should always load the single wedges in from the bottom of the clip. The PowerPac is intended for serious users of temporary fence, and such farmers typically carry a fair bit of fencing kit around with them. Standard quad carriers tend to be a bit small and light and come in a variety of shapes and sizes. So our approach with this product is to provide a standard, dedicated, heavy-duty carrier that has been carefully configured for maximum fencing efficiency. This carrier can be custom fitted to most quads, although it does come with a snap attach mount, which eases the customization of the mounting points and allows a mix and match of fencing and other equipment between quads and other vehicles. Let's have a look at the PowerPac equipment. The motor is a 12 volt, 100 watt DC gear motor, which can draw up to 20 amps. So your wiring needs to be 4mm stranded copper, and you should have a 30 amp fuse in the circuit. The motor speed is set so that you can wind in polywire at ground speeds of up to 15 kilometers an hour. If you're travelling slower than that, the speed differential is taken up as slippage between this drive plate and the spool. The friction drive on the spool can be varied by the amount of down pressure on the spool provided by these idler rollers. It can either be set to 0 or one of 3 quickly selectable settings, whose overall band is adjusted with this nut on the top of the stylus spindle. The stylus arms have 3 index positions. At one extreme they are set over the spool in the winding position, and note that the stylus arm should point directly at or slightly overshoot the centre of the drive spindle. In the central mode, the rollers are clear of the spool. This is the neutral mode, and at the other extreme, this locking arm engages with the bottom drive plate to prevent the drive spindle from rotating backwards. The drive spindle can be pulled off the gear motor drive shaft, which helps if you get a polywire wrap around the bottom of the drive shaft. Note that to put it back on, you need to align the drive dog with the keyway in the drive shaft. When you're loading your spools, note that the dog and the drive plate slides down the appropriate keyway in the drive spindle so that the spools end up in the correct position. The motor winds anti-clockwise as you look from the top, so have the polywire feeding in from the front. This auxiliary rack mount means it can carry an extra rack of tread-ins without interfering with the fencing process. If you're doing a lot of driving around the farm without fencing, note that it provides a lower and hence more stable mounting position than the normal pack upstand. You can further stabilise the tread-ins using this bungee here. The Spool Caddy carries any drive plates that are currently not in use, and obviously any spare spools. This wire catcher helps prevent the polywire from whipping under the bottom spool when the polywire tension decreases at the end of the polywire run. The first pigtails that the polywire winds through or threads through, and the guide upright that they are attached to, we call the primary guide. The secondary guide consists of this guide sidearm and these secondary pigtails. The guide upright is mounted in a nylon bush, so it is free to rotate. And the secondary guide is also attached using the same sort of friction joint so that it can swing in an arc like this. The overall height of this arm is adjustable using this bolt here, and the secondary pigtails can be individually adjusted like this and like this. The pack upstand is identical in function to what we've already seen on the vehicle kits, except that the mounting point is built into the carrier itself. We can mount a fully loaded sheep or beef pack on the mount and fence a la quad, as we've already seen. For transit, we can swing the pack in this direction and provide additional stability using this bungee here. As you can see, having the pack in this position leaves this side of the bike free for PowerPac fencing. Except to get access to our tread-ins, we need to swap the orientation of the pack on its chassis. The tread-in extractor is also mounted in a nylon bush so that it stays where we put it, and its height is adjustable using this tapered pin. Well, that's all the bits. Let's see how it works. Let's set our guide in the appropriate position. Note that the sidearm is pointing at about 4 o'clock. If you are fencing with more than one wire, ensure that your locking arm is engaged on the base plate. This prevents the spindle from rotating backwards and ensures that we've got independent frictional braking on all the spools. Whip the poly wire into the primary guide pigtails, and the same on the secondary, and head back towards our anchorage point. Normally we wouldn't use release hooks with the PowerPac, and in fact you could tie the poly wires to a dedicated anchor tread-in. However, there are times when you might want to wind the poly wire in faster than your ground speed. For instance, you may want to shift a portable trough halfway down the line. There's no fear of overheating chucks with this method, and no adjustments to make. The only thing to be careful of is if you're fencing in duplex mode, don't stop too quickly when the spools are spinning very fast. We've already seen how to do end assemblies, so let's just wind our way down the fence line. We've got the guide side arm set to 6 o'clock, and the tread-in extractor is at battle stations. We've got the appropriate amount of pressure set on the spool, wind it on, and away we go. It's best to aim the quad so the extractor catches the tread-in on its outer arm. You need to have the top clip set on very firmly. It's best to button off a little bit on the throttle as you approach the tread-in, as especially in hard ground you might find the odd clip flying off. Despite the fact that you need to do a batten twirl, it's still best to load the tread-in into the rack, holding it at the top. You can ride the quad in the normal position, but you still need to operate the throttle with your left hand. Well, that just about wraps things up. In fact, the PowerPac is still evolving, and there are still some even more specialised means of operation, but that really deserves another video. Happy fencing, and please take care.